No, what I would say is, okay, actually, this is mad. I can't believe I missed this one. Here's the weirdest angle ever on Aleksib winning the major. Believe it or not, I don't even have like the relief of like finally he won or like, yeah, now he's like, believe it or not, I actually think the best part is because morons really do only care about trophies. And no matter how much they hate, in their brain, if you win the big major, you must be really good. This actually gives a complete reset to the narrative of Aleksib's career because he had the stupidest momentum of all time where they really did think he should have won tournaments with those rosters. Like the only one that's even vaguely there for me is the G2 one. And even then it was Jax instead of JKS, as I will point out 1 million fucking times. So I actually think the cool thing now if you're Aleksib is not only do you have an insane trophy on your resume, and or more importantly, you didn't do it with simple. So they can't even say that, by the way. If you'd done it with simple, then they go, well, yeah, simple. Nobody's going, well, you had wonderful. Well, you had GL. In fact, if anything, they're like, wow, those players are better than I thought they were before. Like, actually, I'd say that's helping Aleksib's case. So the good thing now is that whole narrative is dead. Now, from now on, he's just a guy who has a real chance to be a top IGL and ups and downs. I think the difference is when the next Na'Vi failure happens, people will ask for a player to be fired, but it won't be Aleksib. They won't say, just replace him and get into kicks on or something. Now Aleksib has a chance to actually, like, he's essentially thrown the baggage out of the window of the plane as he boarded the private jet that's for major winners only, that flushes in there with the cockpit, with the pilot, like, cheating on his taxes or whatever he might be doing allegedly in a video game. Right? What do you guys think?
The first thing I have to bring up is that in the Sun Gods rap that was made for ESL Pro League in 2022 to diss the Night Shift, which was me, Paula, and Bleh, Sponge said that he was in jest. He said Maui's got takes as clean as Aleksib's trademark fakes, which was a tongue-in-cheek comment remarking upon the fact that he didn't really think Aleksib's fakes were all that, nor did he think my takes were all that. Well, how did that age, dickhead?
I'm just going to say as well, even though it's slightly mean, because he's not doing it from a pro player. Chad, you were a pro IGL, mate. All I'm going to say is this, my dude. Like, Aleksib's worst game, you'd actually be talking about that like it was versus Titan or Mirage at Claude 2015 if you had his worst game. So, just going to say that, Going to say that. So anyway, what do you think, Hugo?
Yeah, I mean, Aleksib...
I can't believe that was your only point. You just dissed Chad, and that's it. There's no point. We'll come back to you afterwards. Give us your take, Hugo, and then he'll think of a real take, not just dissing Chad.
on Aleksib, I mean, he wasted 2 years in OG. Like, he wasted 2 years in a team that never put together a roster that was even capable of getting playoffs at big events, let alone like being in the conversation for winning a major. So I'm not surprised his stock maybe was fairly low, but talking about G2, like he didn't even have a year in G2 either, and they still made some finals. They still made some top 4 runs at a Blast event, and it was probably butchering the major that got him cut in the first place at Antwerp, and then G2 cut him. They bring in Puxi or was it Nexa after that, and they just do the same thing at Rio anyway. They in fact go worse. They don't even get to the RMR. So yeah, his stock was always going to be low, but I actually think it's nice. Yeah, I'm with you. It's nice that he's actually got a chance to. Because you frame it of like, oh, he didn't do this with simple. Well, my response to that would be he did it with Ema, who has looked like nothing like his Paris run ever since, even in this tournament, was pretty underwhelming. And I don't just mean off numbers. Like when you see him in like some of the positions he gets on some T sides, some of the lurks, I feel like there are so many players that could get more value out of that. And sure, he's coming out in interviews and saying like, oh, if I'm bottom of the scoreboard and we're winning, it doesn't really matter. It's like, yeah, logically, I agree. But also, I think even after Na'Vi are winning, there is that little, parasite in the back of your mind, like as soon as they start losing, Simple is there maybe to rifle for Ema, or there are plenty of other players I think who could play his role and have proven themselves to play his role at a higher level. So I'm glad that he's not going to be the first one on the chopping block for once, because as Launders would say, his time in NIP doesn't count. And two years wasted in OG, and a G2 that clearly didn't believe in him if they're cutting him after one botched major. Well, everyone botches majors nowadays. I think it's nice that he's got some security behind his position, because I think this team is cool. Like not everyone's everyone's behind the Na'Vi run, and we were talking about the win percentage of rounds and whether or not this is a fluke. But I think the roster is cool, and there are pieces of it to like. And I've also always liked Aleksib's T sides. Even his track record, what is it now? It's got to be like almost 20-2 against his former teams. Like, that's actually fucking insane if you think about it. There's no one with that kind of repertoire to consistently beat their former teams. I don't even know at that point what you're taking away or what he's saying, or whether that's a fluke, but that's a statistical anomaly that he's beating his former rosters so consistently, even G2 in Copenhagen.
For a real take, I just feel like it's just such a self-own when people are express that the only way that they can value an in-game leader is by trophies, because obviously if you were to do that, then you would just give, I mean, Hooksy won Katowice and Cologne, so you should rate him as one of the best in-game leaders in the world right there. It's just reductive, and that's why you need to watch the game, and that's why stats don't still tell the whole picture, because even a stat like T-side round win percentage, which I do cite frequently, doesn't always tell the whole story, because sometimes the reason that, say, G2 has a good round win percentage on T-side is because we saw Nico have a masterclass by himself. And so there's been an aspect to Aleksib's game which, for people that have watched closely for a very long time, have recognized there's a strong mid-round understanding, especially when he was calling with ENCE, especially when he's calling with OG, that lifted the pieces that he was working with well above the sum of their parts. And for him to finally gain that trophy, it's going to make the reductive and easy conversation a lot easier for why you can include him in the best in-game leaders in the world. But anybody that was watching closely should have been on top of this. And I think some people might even go like, okay, well, who are other in-game leaders where the eye test just really checks out? Well, like, I mean, that don't necessarily have the trophies. I mean, Shuhei's a prime example. The difference between how he was calling with Maus versus how Dexter was calling with Maus is a stark difference. There's other people like this that were propping up before they actually get the cabinet, because we're actually watching closely and not just using result-oriented analysis.
I'll give you a couple of little facts as well for people who like to talk shit. 'Cause another thing they also do is if they look at a lineup, their brain is incapable of doing what I do, where I try to remember the time period and what was that player experience? Was he good at the time? They just take the player's name and he's static. He's always that good and he always was going to be that good. So there's two players that he played with that are at the top of the game right now. Remember, he played with Flames from Vitality. Spoiler, he was 17 years old and never been to any lands. So, brilliant. Then he had Monacy, didn't he? You all know Monacy. 16-year-old rookie Monacy, his first ever lands, right? You're supposed to just win the tournament with these people. And you're supposed to actually win the major with, like, rookie Monacy. By the way, Hooksy didn't even qualify to a fucking major when he had his first shot with better Monacy, as he's had, like, 9 months at that point in time. So I also think people were just very, very unfair in that regard. See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.